We spend so much of our lives pushing, pulling, striving, trying to make things happen, as though the whole universe were a stubborn door that refuses to open unless we lean our entire weight against it. And yet, have you noticed? Most doors open inward. If you push too hard, you only jam them tighter. We are taught, almost from the moment we can walk, that life is a kind of contest, that you must exert yourself, apply effort, drive your will into the world. And so, we grow up clenching our minds, tightening our muscles, worrying ourselves into motion. We push our way through time. We force ourselves to succeed, to understand, to love, to be spiritual, even to relax. We make relaxation into another form of strain. But life, you see, doesn't work that way. Life isn't a machine to be forced. It's more like a melody, and you can't rush a melody without spoiling its song. Now, I don't mean you should sit about and do nothing. I don't mean you should let life slide by in laziness. But there's a very subtle art to letting things happen, to doing without forcing. The Taoists of China had a lovely word for it: Wu Wei, effortless action, action without strain. It sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? Action without doing. But the meaning is quite simple once you feel it. It means moving in accord with the rhythm of things, like a surfer who rides the wave instead of trying to push it. He doesn't create the wave, he doesn't command it, he simply aligns himself with it. And so he moves effortlessly, beautifully, because he trusts its power. You see, the moment you begin to force life, you separate yourself from it. You create this division between me and what I want. And that tension makes everything harder. It's like trying to swim while holding your breath. You can't possibly float that way. Stop for a moment. Notice your own body. Right now, there's breathing happening, without any effort from you. Your heart is beating, your blood moving, your thoughts rising and falling like waves on the sea. And you who think you are in control had nothing to do with any of it. You can't will your heart to beat faster for very long. You can't consciously digest your breakfast. Life does all of this for you, automatically. It lives you, in a sense, and if you try to interfere too much, you only disturb the natural flow. So, when I say don't force anything, I'm inviting you to trust this flow, to let life live itself through you, without so much interference from the little anxious voice that says, I must make it happen. Imagine a flower trying to bloom by effort. It would strain, tighten, shiver in the sunlight, and yet its petals would never open that way. The flower doesn't say, I must become beautiful. It simply grows, because growing is its nature. And so with you, you are not apart from the universe. You are the universe, expressing itself as this person, in this moment. When you fight the flow of life, you're like a wave trying to resist the ocean. But when you surrender, then the energy of the whole sea carries you. Now, that word surrender, it frightens people. They think it means giving up, but it doesn't mean that at all. It means giving in to what is real, to what's already happening. Let's take an example. Imagine you're trying to remember a name. You know it's there, on the tip of your tongue, but the more you try to drag it out, the further it slips away. You frown, you strain, you say, it's right there, I almost have it, and it doesn't come. But then, later, when you're washing the dishes, or walking outside, or doing something completely unrelated, suddenly the name pops right into your head. Why? Because you stopped forcing. You gave your mind a little room to breathe. And in that space, the answer came all by itself. That's how the whole of life works. The harder you clutch it, the less it responds. The tighter you try to hold water, the more it escapes through your fingers. And so, the art of living is not the art of controlling, but of allowing. To allow is not weakness, it's wisdom. There's a rhythm to things, a kind of breathing of the world. Expansion and contraction, growth and decay, rising and falling. Everything follows this movement. If you try to interrupt it, if you try to always be up, always expanding, always winning, you break the balance and the whole thing becomes painful. But if you can trust that the low tide will always return to high, that every night carries the dawn within it, then you begin to move differently. You stop fighting and you begin to dance. You see, not forcing doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become responsive, like a tree bending in the wind, rather than snapping beneath it. The tree doesn't resent the wind. It flows with it, and that's what makes it strong. Now, imagine for a moment that life is like music. You wouldn't sit through a symphony just to hear the last note, would you? You'd let yourself be carried by the sound, moment by moment. You wouldn't say to the orchestra, "Hurry up, get to the end," because the beauty lies in the unfolding. And yet, that's how most of us live, always trying to reach the conclusion, the answer, the success, always forcing the tempo. But the meaning of life, you see, isn't in the conclusion, it's in the playing. When you stop forcing, you begin to hear the music that was always there, the music of now. Stop and listen. You may hear the sound of your own breathing, the hum of the room, the quiet pulse of the world beneath it all. That's life, effortlessly being itself. It doesn't need your command. It doesn't need your push. When you force something, you imply that life is not enough as it is, that this moment must be different before it can be complete. But this moment right now is perfect in its unfolding, even in its imperfection, because what we call imperfection is just life still in motion. It hasn't finished its dance yet. Don't rush the dance. Don't force the rhythm. Think of a caterpillar forcing its way out of a cocoon before its wings are ready. It may tear itself apart trying to escape the process that is meant to strengthen it. The struggle of emergence is part of the becoming. But the timing, the when, is not the caterpillar's to decide. When you force yourself to bloom before your time, you suffer. When you resist blooming, when your time has come, you suffer again. So, don't force, don't resist, just trust the unfolding. It's quite funny, really. We go through life thinking we are the doer, when in truth, we are being done. You don't beat your heart, it beats you. You don't think thoughts, thoughts think themselves. You don't even breathe, breathing breathes you. And the more you realize this, the more you begin to laugh, because you see the cosmic joke of it all. You were never in control, and you never needed to be. You can work hard, yes, you can move, create, explore, but when you do it because it's delightful, not because you must. Work becomes play when it's no longer forced. Even discipline can be gentle when it's born from love rather than fear. A musician practices not because he's anxious to be perfect, but because he loves the sound. A gardener tends the soil not to command it, but to be part of its miracle. This is the kind of action that flows effortless, joyful, real. Stop for a moment and consider, what happens in your life when you stop trying to make everything happen? What space opens when you let go of the steering wheel for just a breath? You find that things keep happening anyway, and often more beautifully than you could have planned. That's because forcing narrows the field of life. It blinds you to possibility. But when you release control, life reveals paths you didn't even know were there. You see, when a river meets a rock, it doesn't fight it, it flows around it. It still reaches the sea, just by another route. So when life seems to block your way, perhaps it isn't an obstacle at all, but a nudge, a redirection. If you force your way through the rock, you'll only hurt yourself. But if you let go, you find another way, one that's already waiting for you. It's not laziness, it's intelligence, the intelligence of water, the wisdom of yielding. And isn't that what peace really is? Not the absence of motion, but the absence of resistance. So, what happens when you truly stop forcing? Something remarkable. You begin to notice that life has its own intelligence, an intelligence far greater than the anxious plans of the mind. It's the same intelligence that turns an acorn into an oak, that guides the stars in their orbits, that shapes the tides and the winds. And that same intelligence is moving through you, this very moment. It doesn't need your attention to operate. It only asks for your cooperation. When you stop forcing, you don't lose direction, you gain alignment. You no longer act against the current, you move with it. And in that movement, your actions gain a quiet power. They stop being the jerky motions of fear and become the graceful gestures of trust. You see, the paradox is this: the less you try to control life, the more you find yourself in harmony with it. The more you relax into uncertainty, the more certain you feel because you've discovered that you don't need to know what's next to be alive right now. Life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. And mysteries reveal themselves only when you stop demanding answers. They bloom in silence, like night-blooming flowers that open only when you stop shining your flashlight at them. Stop. Listen. Can you feel that quiet movement beneath thought? That gentle hum of being? That's you before you began trying to be someone. That's the effortless self, the one that doesn't need to prove or perform, the one that doesn't rush to fix or to force. It's been here all along, waiting patiently for you to stop struggling. We live in a world that glorifies effort, doesn't it? We are told that success belongs to those who grind the hardest, that peace comes from conquering the mind, that love must be earned, enlightenment achieved. But all of that is just more forcing, dressed in spiritual clothing. Real peace, real freedom, arises when you let go of the idea that you must attain them. Because the moment you chase peace, it runs. The moment you try to force stillness, the mind trembles. But when you stop chasing, when you simply notice what is, peace reveals itself. As quietly as dawn spilling through an open window. You can't make the sun rise by shouting at it. You can only watch in stillness, as it does inevitably, perfectly, on its own time. And that's how everything unfolds. Love, growth, clarity, purpose, they arise when the soil of your being is soft, when you're not pressing so hard for them to grow. Imagine you're trying to catch a soap bubble. If you snatch at it, it bursts. But if you open your hand gently, it may land right there, glimmering for a moment before floating away. That's how joy works, how love works, how truth works. You can only hold them by not holding at all. Now, many people fear that if they stop forcing, nothing will happen, that without pressure, they'll lose all direction, become lazy or indifferent. But this is misunderstanding the nature of life. You see, the universe abhors stillness only when it's dead, and you are not dead. You're brimming with life. There's a deep spontaneity in you that wants to move, to create, to dance. When you stop forcing, you don't fall into inertia, you fall into rhythm. That rhythm may be slow at times, fast at others, but it's never forced. It's alive. It's like jazz. The beauty of improvisation comes not from controlling every note, but from listening deeply to what wants to happen next. You are part of that great improvisation. The music of existence playing itself through you. And when you try to force the music, you create dissonance. But when you listen, truly listen, you find that the next note comes naturally. The melody unfolds of its own accord. Have you ever noticed that the most beautiful things in life tend to happen when you least expect them? A sudden laugh that lightens your day, a stranger's kindness, a moment of insight that just appears out of nowhere. These things can't be forced. They come as gifts. They come when you stop trying so hard to deserve them. Forcing is the language of fear. Allowing is the language of trust. And trust, real trust, is the essence of peace. Now, I don't mean blind trust, not the kind that ignores reality. I mean a deep trust that even the difficult moments are part of the unfolding. That even confusion, pain, and loss have their own rhythm, their own hidden intelligence. The seed doesn't curse the darkness of the soil. It trusts that the dark is where it must begin. So when life seems heavy, unclear, or still don't force your way out of it, don't demand that spring arrive before winter is done teaching. Because forcing growth before its season only weakens the roots. When the time is right, you'll feel the movement again. You'll feel it the way a bird feels, the change in wind, not by thinking, but by sensing. That's how life guides you when you stop forcing. Not through plans, but through feeling. Listen. Right now, there is nothing missing. The universe, in its infinite play, has brought you here, to this moment, breathing, listening, alive. You didn't force your way into existence, did you? You simply appeared. And that miracle continues every second, effortlessly. All forcing is rooted in forgetfulness, forgetting that you are already part of the great design. The mind, when afraid, forgets its belonging and begins to shout commands at the ocean. But the ocean doesn't need to be told what to do. It's already dancing. Sometimes, to remember that truth, you must be still. Not still as in rigid, still as in receptive. Still as a mirror that reflects everything without holding anything. And in that stillness, you realize that nothing ever needed to be forced, because everything has been unfolding perfectly, even the moments that seemed imperfect. The rain that ruins the picnic also feeds the earth. The delay that frustrates you may save your life. The failure that breaks your heart may open it wide enough for real love to enter. There's a hidden grace in what you didn't plan, but you can't see it while you're forcing. You can only see it when you let go. Stop. Breathe. Look around. Everything is happening all by itself. The world turns. The air moves. The body breathes. And you are simply here. The miracle was never about making things happen. It was about noticing that they already are. When you stop forcing, you stop dividing yourself into the doer and the done. You become the happening itself. Life moves, and you move with it. Thought rises, feeling comes, sound, silence, laughter, tears, all of it dances through you like wind through the trees. And the funny thing is, when you live this way, not forcing, but allowing, you actually become more effective, not less, because your actions come from clarity, not compulsion. They arise naturally, like ripples from a pebble dropped in still water. You see, doing flows best from being, just as words flow best from silence. When you know how to be still, truly still, then everything you do has depth. You're no longer reacting, you're responding, and response is always wiser than reaction. So don't be in such a hurry to fix, to solve, to change. Let life show you what it wants to do next. The universe doesn't rush, and yet everything is accomplished. Even stars are patient. Now, I'll tell you something. You don't have to make your life meaningful. You only have to stop resisting its meaning. It's already here, in the laughter you didn't plan, in the tears you didn't hide, in the ordinary quiet moments between one thought and another. You are the meaning, not the project, not the goal, not the plan. You, this alive.
You know, there's something rather amusing about the way we've been taught to talk to God. We approach it as if we're sending a telegram to some distant cosmic emperor who sits on a throne billions of miles away, checking his clipboard to see if we've been good enough to deserve his attention. We kneel down, close our eyes very tightly, fold our hands just so, and then we begin our performance. Dear God, we say, as if we're writing a letter to someone we've never met. I hope you're having a nice day up there. Now, about that thing I wanted... But what if I told you that the whole setup is backwards? What if talking to God has nothing whatever to do with talking to someone else at all? Let me ask you something. When you talk to yourself, do you use words? I don't mean when you're muttering about the grocery list or rehearsing what you're going to say to your boss. I mean in those quiet moments when you're really listening to yourself, when you're trying to figure out what you actually feel about something, what you truly want. In those moments, there's a kind of knowing that happens before words, isn't there? It's more like a recognition, a sensing, a direct awareness of what's going on inside you. Now, here's the curious thing. What we call God, what we might also call the universe, the ground of being, the eternal now, this isn't some separate entity sitting outside of you, checking off items on a list. You see, you are an expression of this whole universe. You're not in the universe like a marble in a box. You are something the universe is doing right here, right now, in the same way that a wave is something the ocean is doing. So when you talk to God, you're not really talking to someone else. You're becoming aware of what you already are. You're tuning in to the fact that this thing you call me is actually the whole cosmos experiencing itself from this particular point of view. Think about it this way. The wave rises up out of the ocean and looks around and says, my goodness, I'm separate from all this water. But of course, that's nonsense. The wave is water. It's made of water. It moves with the water. When it crashes on the shore, it doesn't die. It simply returns to what it always was, the ocean. We are like that wave. We rise up out of this mysterious source, this ground of all being, and we think we're separate from it. We think we have to shout across some vast distance to get its attention. But you can't be separate from it, because you are it. You are the universe looking at itself through your eyes right now. So what does it mean to talk to God? It means to stop, to be quiet, to listen. You see, we've got the whole thing backwards. We think prayer is about speaking, about making our requests known, about explaining our situation to some divine bookkeeper who might not have noticed what's going on in our lives. But the real art is in the listening, not the speaking. When Jesus went off by himself to pray, he wasn't reciting memorized formulas. He was becoming quiet enough to hear. He was letting go of the noise in his head, all the chatter, all the planning and worrying and rehearsing. He was settling into a deeper silence where something else could speak. And what speaks in that silence? Well, that's the whole mystery, isn't it? You might call it intuition, or guidance, or the voice of God. But what it really is reality itself making itself known to you. It's life showing you what wants to happen next. Let me tell you what happens when most people pray. They come with an agenda. They've already decided what should happen. They've figured out exactly how God should fix their problem, exactly what solution would be best. And then they dress it all up in humble language. If it be thy will, Lord, please do exactly what I've already decided should happen. But this is rather like going to a doctor and saying, I've diagnosed my own condition and prescribed my own treatment. Now please give me what I've decided I need. The doctor might smile and say, perhaps we should examine you first, don't you think? The correct way to talk to God is to come empty. To come not knowing. To come without your list of demands and requirements. To come as pure listening, pure receptivity, pure openness to what is. This is not passivity. This is not. It's something much more alive than that. It's like swimming in a river. If you try to control the water, if you try to force it to flow in a different direction, you'll exhaust yourself and probably drown. But if you relax into the current, if you feel which way it's moving and flow with it, then you discover you can navigate with incredible grace and power. When you sit quietly and stop all your internal chattering, something remarkable happens. At first, you notice all the noise, all the thoughts bouncing around like popcorn in a hot pan, all the worries, the plans, the memories, the fantasies. And your first instinct will be to try to stop them, to push them away, to make your mind blank and pure. But you see, this too is just more doing. It's more controlling. It's more of you trying to force reality to match your idea of how it should be. Instead, simply watch. Watch the thoughts come and go like clouds drifting across the sky. You don't have to do anything with them. You don't have to believe them or act on them or push them away. Just watch. And in the watching, something begins to happen. The thoughts begin to slow down. The chatter begins to quiet. And in that quietness you begin to sense something else. A presence, an awareness. A sense of being held by something much larger than yourself. This is what Jesus meant when he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He wasn't talking about some future reward or some place you go when you die. He was talking about this direct awareness of your unity with all that is. This recognition that you are not separate from the source of all life. Now I know what you're thinking, but what about my problems? What about the things I need help with? Are you telling me I should just sit quietly and do nothing while my life falls apart? Not at all. But here's what I am saying. The help you need doesn't come from some external deity who might or might not decide to intervene. It comes from this deeper wisdom that emerges when you get your anxious, controlling little ego out of the way. When you're all wound up in worry, when you're frantically trying to figure everything out, when you're desperately praying for God to change your circumstances, you're like a radio that's jammed with static. The signal is there, but you can't hear it because you're making too much noise. But when you become quiet, when you let go of your agenda, when you stop trying to control the outcome, something amazing happens. Solutions appear that you couldn't have thought of. Opportunities open up that you didn't know existed. You find yourself saying and doing exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment, not because you planned it, but because you got out of your own way and let life flow through you. This is what it means to pray without ceasing, as Paul put it. It doesn't mean walking around all day reciting prayers. It means living in this state of open awareness, this constant listening, this ongoing recognition of your connection to the source of all being. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're worried about money. The usual way of praying about this is to ask God to give you money, to make your circumstances better, to solve your financial problems. But notice what this does. It keeps you focused on the problem. It reinforces the belief that you don't have enough. It makes you feel powerless and dependent on some external force to rescue you. But suppose instead you sit quietly and simply become aware of your breathing. You notice the air moving in and out. You notice that you didn't have to learn how to breathe. Your body just knows. It's been breathing you since the moment you were born, and it will continue breathing you until the moment you die, without any effort or worry on your part. And then you expand that awareness. You notice that your heart is beating, your food is digesting, your cells are doing their incredible dance of life. All of this is happening without any conscious control from you. The intelligence that runs your body is vastly greater than your conscious mind. And this intelligence, this organizing principle, this creative force, it's the same intelligence that spins the galaxies and grows the trees and brings the spring after winter. It's all one thing. And you are not separate from it. You are one of its expressions. When you really feel this, when you sense your connection to this vast creative intelligence, something shifts. You stop feeling like a beggar asking for scraps. You start feeling like what you are, an integral part of this whole magnificent process. And from that place, from that sense of connection and trust, you begin to act differently. You make different choices. You see opportunities you missed before. You find resources you didn't know you had. The money problem might or might not resolve itself immediately, but your relationship to it changes. You stop being paralyzed by fear. You stop making desperate decisions. You start flowing with life instead of fighting against it. This is what Jesus demonstrated over and over again. He didn't stand apart from the Father, begging and pleading. He said, I and the Father are one. He lived from that place of unity. And from that place, the so-called miracles happen naturally, not as violations of natural law, but as expressions of a deeper understanding of how things actually work. Now you might say, but what about gratitude? Shouldn't we thank God for what we have? Of course. But again, we've misunderstood what gratitude really is. It's not about keeping God happy, like a child thanking a parent so they'll get dessert. Real gratitude is simply the recognition of the gift that existence is. Look at this. You are alive. You can see, hear, taste, touch, smell. You can think and feel and experience this astonishing world. None of this is ordinary. None of this is something you earned or deserved. It's pure gift. It's grace. It's miracle. When you really see this, when you really feel the extraordinary nature of the most ordinary moment, a glass of water, a breath of air, the warmth of the sun, gratitude arises naturally. You don't have to manufacture it or perform it. It simply bubbles up from the recognition of how blessed you already are. And this gratitude changes everything. It shifts you from a state of lack to a state of abundance, from fear to trust, from grasping to receiving, and in that state you become a channel for even more life, even more creativity, even more blessing to flow through you. So here's the correct way to talk to God. Sit down. Close your eyes if you like, or leave them open and softly focused. Take a few deep breaths and feel your body relaxing. Notice the thoughts bouncing around in your head, but don't follow them. Just watch them come and go. And then, without words, without any formulas or scripts, simply open yourself. Be receptive. Be listening. Be aware. Notice the silence underneath all the noise. Notice the space in which all experience is happening. Notice that you are aware, and this awareness is not separate from what you're aware of. You might sense a presence. You might have insights bubble up. You might simply feel a sense of peace or connection. Or nothing much might happen at all, and that's fine too. You're not doing this to get something. You're doing it to remember what you are. And then as you go about your day, carry this awareness with you. When you're washing dishes, really wash the dishes. Feel the warm water. Notice the bubbles. Be completely present to this simple act. When you're talking to someone, really listen. Don't plan your response. Don't judge what they're saying. Just be there, fully present, fully open. This is prayer. Not the words you recite, but the quality of your presence. Not the requests you make, but the awareness you bring to each moment. When you live this way, you discover something wonderful. The distinction between sacred and ordinary dissolves. Everything becomes prayer. Making breakfast is prayer. Walking to work is prayer. Listening to a friend is prayer. Because you're no longer separate from the source. You're no longer trying to get God's attention. You're simply being what you are, a unique expression of the divine, a particular way that the universe is experiencing itself. And from this place, when you do speak words of prayer, they come from a different source. They're not demands or bargaining or performance. They're expressions of this deeper awareness. They might sound like, thank you, or help me see clearly, or simply yes. You see, the correct way to talk to God is to recognize that there's no one to talk to. There's only this eternal now, this present moment, this direct experience of being alive, and you are not separate from it. You are it. So stop trying so hard. Stop performing. Stop pretending you're someone you're not, talking to something outside yourself. Just be quiet. Just listen. Just open yourself to what is, and in that openness, you'll find that you're already being prayed through. The universe is speaking itself through you. Life is living itself as you. God, if you want to use that word, is not something you talk to. It's what you are. This is the secret that the mystics have known in every tradition. That the seeker and the sought are one. That the prayer and the prayed to are the same thing looking at itself from different angles. That prayer is not communication between separate beings, but the universe becoming conscious of itself. So the correct way to talk to God is to stop talking and start listening. To stop seeking and start being. To stop performing and start experiencing. And in that simple shift, everything changes. Not because God finally heard you and decided to answer, but because you remembered what you always were, an inseparable part of the whole.
There is something happening all around us, though most do not notice. If you pay attention, you may feel it, a quiet vanishing, a fading of certain people from the common noise of life. Not that they have died, nor that they have left the planet, but they are retreating. Spiritually awake people are quietly disappearing from society. They are slipping out of the constant chatter, the endless demands, the ceaseless competition. They are not showing up in the same places anymore, not chasing the same prizes, not clamoring for attention in the same ways. And if you look for them, you may not find them in the crowds, for they have stepped to the side. They are withdrawing, but not out of defeat. They are retreating because they have seen something. And once you have seen, you cannot go back to blindness. What they have seen is the machinery of illusion. They have looked at the game of life that everyone seems to play so seriously, the race for wealth, status, recognition, and they have realized it is not reality at all, but a performance, a grand carnival, a masquerade, in which people wear costumes so long they forget who they really are. The spiritually awake have glimpsed the absurdity. They have seen the frantic striving for what never satisfies. They have seen the way people cling to identities, to possessions, to reputations, as though these could secure them against death. And once this is seen, the game loses its grip. Imagine you are in a theater, watching a play, and suddenly you notice the wires that hold the scenery, the lights that create the illusions, the actors reading their lines. You cannot unsee it. The drama no longer fools you. You may still watch, you may still enjoy the story, but you no longer confuse it for truth. That is what happens when one awakens. And so they step back. To those still asleep, this looks like disappearance. They see someone no longer interested in chasing promotions, no longer caught up in gossip, no longer glued to the endless news cycle, and they think something has gone wrong. They whisper, "He has lost ambition, she has lost her spark." But what has been lost is not life, it is the lie about life. The spiritually awake are not absent because they lack vitality. They are absent because they no longer feed the machine that drains vitality. They are disappearing, not into nothingness, but into a deeper presence. Yet from the outside, it seems as if they have vanished. Society does not know what to do with such people. For society values productivity, visibility, and noise. It rewards those who perform endlessly, who stay busy, who keep running. To step aside from this is to appear irrelevant, and so the awake slip quietly into invisibility. But their disappearance reveals a deeper problem, that our culture cannot recognize wisdom unless it is loud. It cannot see truth unless it is branded. It cannot hear silence because it only knows how to listen for shouts. And so the very people who hold the medicine for a sick society are dismissed as if they had nothing to offer. Their stillness is mistaken for absence, their quiet for emptiness, their retreat for defeat. Consider the modern condition. From dawn until sleep, we are bombarded by noise advertisements demanding attention, devices pulling our gaze, institutions demanding productivity. Life is lived in constant interruption, a ceaseless tugging at the mind. The awake see through this. They see how distraction is not accidental but engineered. They see how the system thrives on keeping people restless, never still, always consuming, always striving. And so they walk away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. They no longer want to be cogs in this machinery. They no longer want to sacrifice presence for productivity or depth for performance. They realize that life is not found in the frantic chase, but in the stillness beneath it. To the unawakened, this retreat is incomprehensible. For the unawakened, life's meaning is bound to status, possessions, achievements. They cannot imagine stepping away from this treadmill, because to do so would mean collapse. To them, stepping back is failure. And yet, the awakened know that chasing endlessly is the true failure, because the chase never ends. It is like trying to catch the horizon. No matter how far you run, it remains ahead of you. At some point, you see that the pursuit itself is the trap. So the spiritually awake step off the track entirely. They are not running anymore. And because they are no longer running, they cannot be seen in the race. To the racers, they have disappeared. But this disappearance comes at a cost. For those who awaken are often misunderstood. Friends may drift away, unable to relate anymore. Family may criticize, thinking something has gone wrong. Society at large may ignore them. And so there is a loneliness in awakening, not because one is truly alone, but because the world cannot yet recognize the dimension you are living in. This is why it appears as though awake people are vanishing. They are not vanishing, they are becoming invisible to a culture that only measures what can be seen on the surface. And yet, notice the irony. The very qualities dismissed as irrelevant are those most desperately needed. For in a world that is addicted to noise, silence is wisdom. In a culture drowning in excess, simplicity is medicine. In a society built on anxiety, presence is liberation. But because silence, simplicity, and presence cannot be sold, they are ignored. And the ones who embody them seem to disappear. Think of the carnival again. Everyone rushing from one ride to another, desperate for the next thrill. But one person stops. They step outside the flashing lights, the spinning rides, the endless noise. They sit quietly at the edge,